What's up, guys? This is Shae.
And this is Matt. And this is the Building Small Business Podcast. And today we have Mike from Alpha Radon here. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the business that he owns and operates here locally out of Lexington. And I'll just give you the floor for a second. So tell us a little bit about it.
All right. So I own Alpha Radon Remediation. We do residential and commercial radon mitigation and testing. And it's really been an exciting start to the business in these last 2.5 years. Business is really picking up. Awareness is really starting to become a thing. And even the pandemic really helped us out a lot. People were stuck at home a lot more, and they were really thinking about things that they needed to do to their house, and radon is usually at the bottom of the list. So it really helped business for us as well. So it's been good times and lots of good problems to have.
So tell us a bit about what radon actually is.
Okay, so radon is a decay product of uranium. So there's no way to test for it until a house is built and airtight. So uranium's been around as long as time. Once the uranium decays, it actually decays into radium. Then that radium decays into radon. And then a step beyond that, the part that actually gives you cancer, or shouldn't say gives you cancer, but can aid in the development of cancer in your lungs, is the alpha particle. So that's where we get our name. So that alpha particle, actually very similarly to COVID, it will stick to aerosols and dust particles in the air. And then once you inhale that, if enough of that gets in your lungs, it'll actually start to stick to your lungs and then aid in damaging the lung tissues. So.
Okay, so you said, so does it actually get like stuck in your house? Like, is it a gas that rises into the house and it kind of hangs out inside of there?
So it does, yeah. So the gas rises up from the soil into the house through the natural stack effect of the house. All air is going to get sucked up through the house, through the basement or slab or crawl space, and it's going to vent out of your attic, which is why you have attic vents. So always proper ventilation in your house is a big thing, but even the best ventilated houses can still have radon. So when we mitigate, after 24 hours, all that's gone. So, and the thing to keep in mind too is that once the radon is in the house, radon has a half-life of 3.5 days. So once it's in the house, unless new radon comes in, then after 3.5 days, any radon that's in the house will be gone once we install our system.
That's awesome. I've already learned 10 things.
I think we can wrap it up now.
Yeah, all right, man. Thanks for coming on. So what made you want to start going face first, for lack of better terms, into these gases and helping people not have them in their homes?
Sure. So I have actually had a lot of cancer in my family, so it's always been something that's intrigued me. Never would I have ever thought that I would own a radon mitigation business. I majored in business in college and thought I was going to do different things. Started 2 other businesses that failed, and then I started doing home inspecting and really saw a spike in radon testing. I had no clue what it was until I started doing home inspections. I didn't even test my own house, which actually ended up having radon, which is awesome.
Yeah, I might call you for mine after this.
Right. Once we started referring other radon businesses, we kind of started getting a lot of complaints. And I'm not one to throw other companies under the bus or anything like that, but I saw a niche, and I knew that if we could deliver a better product and just communicate better, I would at least have my foot in the door. And it's really been almost an easy launching pad for me, just because of all the realtors that I already knew.
So when you do like your mitigation, what is that process like?
So it really depends. So the most basic mitigation system is going to be for a basement. And what we do is we core out a 3-inch hole in your slab. We're going to dig out at least 5 gallons of gravel or subsoil material. Sometimes it's dirt. And then pipe a 3-inch, sometimes 4-inch. If it's a commercial application, sometimes it's 4-inch, just depending on how much airflow you need. But a 3-inch pipe, usually in a unfinished area, or like a laundry room, somewhere where you're not going to care where there's going to be a 3-inch pipe coming out of the ground. If we can, that pipe's out of the house, connects to a fan, and then suction is created. So there's a vacuum created underneath the slab. That's all piped out of the house, and you get rid of the radon. But then there is also crawl space. So if you have to mitigate a crawl space, it is a little bit more expensive. There's always a sticker shock with that, unfortunately for our customers, because we have to encapsulate the space. So we have to seal from the walls down with 6 mil threaded vapor barrier. We have to attach it to the walls, glue it, tape all the seams, glue all the seams, and then all the pipe work goes in under that vapor barrier. So we create that same vacuum underneath the vapor barrier.
Nice. So basically those people that are getting a crawl space system are also getting a vapor barrier as well.
Right. And
so
that's
you're kind of doing two things.
Exactly. So, that's something that we really don't advertise, is that we actually aid in reducing moisture even underneath slabs. If we find moisture down there, we're moving so much air that over time we're going to dry that out for you as well.
Heck yeah. And so what makes you qualified to do these repairs? Like you've had to have some sort of, just overnight start drilling into people's foundations. So, I mean, obviously you've got some sort of construction background. Where does that come from?
Sure. Well, first of all, I am a licensed home inspector still, and that's kind of where I got into this, as I was saying before. I grew up helping my uncle on construction projects, so a lot of the very rudimentary construction techniques I already knew. And then you do have to be nationally licensed and state registered to radon mitigate. So make sure that any of your clients are making sure that their radon specialists are licensed, because there are some of them out there that do not have licenses, and I fix a lot of their systems.
So do you recommend every single house to get tested for radon, or are there certain types of houses that are more likely to have it, or certain areas?
So that's kind of the myth. The myth used to be that slabs don't have it, and I do a lot of slab mitigation, and it's one of the easiest ones to mitigate. But Lexington, so there's 52 cities in the United States that are tier 1 or level 1 cities on the EPA's radon map. And by level 1, I mean that it's the worst. So we have the highest radon content, and Lexington is one of those. So I do recommend that all houses be tested, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have it. You could have radon in your house and your next door neighbor might not. Again, that goes back to uranium in the soil. You could be sitting on a uranium deposit and your neighbor might not be. So
are there certain levels that are worse than a scale of you're okay if it sits within this area?
Yeah. So what the EPA says is that anything over 4 picocuries per liter, so 4 or higher, is action to mitigate. Again, it's not mandated, so that is up to the client all the time. And then the WHO, which we don't go by their standards, the WHO actually says 2.7. So as an active goal, it's not in our contract. We guarantee that we'll get the levels below 4 because the EPA is who controls housing in the United States. But by our standards, we always try to get it below that 2.7 so that we appease everybody and everybody's happy.
That's a good goal to hit. Yeah. So with let's just say you're putting radon system into someone's home, and have you ever had a system? And now you don't have to talk bad about yourself, but have you ever had something where you had to go back and reseal it or do extra work to it?
Yep. So with radon mitigation, the thing I learned very quickly is that you always have to have a contingency plan, because you might be tapping into an area where the radon content might not be as high in the house. So we've had to add extra suction points. We've had to upgrade fans. And the good thing about the way we quote is that when I quote you, that includes if I have to come back, because I have all these fans already ready to go. So me having to come back out is just my guarantee that we'll get it taken care of. It might not be the very first time, but we're going to keep testing, keep making adjustments until it's actually good to go. So
I'm sure there's some sort of science behind this, and I know that I'm backtracking just a bit, but the 4, the level of 4 and the level of 2.7, who says? And then why are they varying? Is the World Health Organization just, they're going to go under and be what's the deal with that?
Well, from what I read, yes, kind of the World Health Organization is kind of saying because what you're dealing with is a radioactive matter, so the WHO doesn't want you exposed to it at all. Keeping that in mind, if you walk outside in Lexington, you're exposed to at least 1.3 picocuries per liter. That's how much radon we have in
just
Lexington.
in the atmosphere. Okay.
Just in the air. Now, keep in mind, you're also not in a confined space, so it's not as dangerous. But I'm pretty sure, like, and they'll have charts. If you go on the EPA's website, it'll really scare you. So I recommend that you don't go to that. But 4 picocuries per liter, they say, is the equivalent to 100 chest X-rays. And most doctors wouldn't let you get more than like 10 in a year. So it's pretty dangerous. But again, I'm not a doctor, so I leave that to higher powers, and I just try to fix it for people.
Right.
That's wild. So to kind of talk about yourself, you had mentioned that you had 2 other businesses before. So kind of what were those, and what led you to become, I think you kind of mentioned the radon part from home inspecting.
Sure. So the first...
Besides the male stripper thing that failed for you.
We don't talk about that.
You can leave that out.
So the first one was actually a online grocery delivery service. The guy that designed ClickList for Kroger actually built our website. But that was 14 years ago.
Oh,
This was
wow.
right
So
when I
you
got
were
out
just a
of
little
college.
ahead of your time.
A little ahead of my time. Was dumping a whole lot of money into it, and I knew I had something, but I was going to go broke trying to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when Amazon quit, I quit.
Yeah.
Because they tried it in Seattle, and they couldn't even make it work with millions of dollars. So I knew my thousands wasn't gonna cut it, and moved on from that. And I actually did flood insurance adjustment. So I was a licensed flood insurance adjuster, and I ended up starting a business with a guy right before, not Katrina, right before Harvey and Irma hit, and did awesome.
This was Texas.
Yep, Texas and Florida, when we had those 2 hurricanes that kind of like almost crossed paths. And
Is that 17?
It was
It
way before that.
was
16?
16.
No, it wasn't way before that.
I think it was 16.
Oh, I thought you said it was before Katrina. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Sorry.
Yeah. So we did that and made really good money in a very short amount of time. And then the whole next year I didn't make a dime. So it's doing flood insurance adjustment is one of those things where you have to wait for the next storm. And I don't like making money off of people's downfall. It's kind of how I felt about that. So that was more or less a moral choice for me, that I didn't really want to do that anymore, and I gave up my shares, and needed to do something more consistent. So that's when I got into home inspecting, which was pretty much an easy transition from doing flood insurance adjustment.
So have you basically grown Alpha from like word of mouth, or what kind of advertising do you do to get yourself out there?
Biggest thing has been word of mouth, and already been a home inspector, I already knew so many realtors. So just starting off, emailing people, talking to people, really got us launched and going. And from that, really, Google advertising has been a big benefit to us. Facebook advertising, just really trying to stay social and stay in front of people's faces have been the biggest things for us. But there's nothing that's ever going to be word of mouth. If you can develop a good reputation for yourself, especially in the service industry around realtors, you're going to
and just teaching people about what radon is. Like, it's not like you learn in school, like, oh, here's radon, you need to worry about this. Like, getting it out there to the public's going to help a lot.
It's fairly recent too, right? Like the knowledge of all this.
It really is. So, and I think that's why we saw an uptick in testing as well. So they really just figured it out in the 80s. And when it came out, people kind of just turned a blind eye to it. A lot of people didn't want to pay attention to it. There wasn't enough scientific data behind it. And it took them a long time, obviously, but they got enough scientific data to say, hey, guys, we need to actually pay attention to this. It's killing 21,000 people a year. That's more than drunk driving car crashes. So
that's incredible.
It's something to pay attention to.
For sure. That's it seems like you found a good niche. I mean, you're doing something that helps people, and you're not just the feast or famine life of flood insurance and going and, like you were kind of saying, like, using these people's downfall to make money. So
sure,
that's awesome.
It feels better.
And I think just to speak on the word of mouth piece a bit, I believe I heard of this venture from Christian when he was doing a home inspection for a client of mine, which tested high for radon, and that was like the first system. And that's when I learned how expensive they were versus crawl space were versus like basements or slabs or whatever. Mm-hmm. So.
I remember that one very well. That was an easy crawl space to do. I was happy to do that one.
It's a bit taller, yeah. But it's funny. I've had a few situations where radon's popped up inside of an inspection period, and either the client has chosen to not deal with it at all, which is it's their right to. It's fine. Or I've had the seller, who was a builder, buck up against it in a big way and just say like, builders don't pay for this and we don't do this and yada 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 yada. And I was like, well, I hear you, but it needs to be repaired in some way or another, or these clients aren't going to be happy with the product. So
on a new build, do you recommend just going ahead and adding in mitigation while it's being built?
So we actually work with Jimmy Nash now, and what they do is they'll have us come in, and you can have a plumber do this as well. They actually have us come in and go ahead and set the pipe. So the reason that's awesome is because you don't have the fan on the outside. In that situation, the fan goes in the attic. It's called Radon Ready New Construction. So there's no ugly fan on the outside of your house, which I'm continuing to try to make look prettier, because that's probably the biggest complaint is, what is that thing on the side of my house? It really is the best way, and it's very inexpensive because, again, you can't test for radon until that house is built and sealed up. So just because their neighbors have it doesn't necessarily mean that this new house that's being built has it. But if you run, $100 worth of 3-inch PVC pipe from the slab to the roof, all we have to do is come in and put on a fan for $500.
Do you see it more common in like newer homes where they are built like more airtight than older homes?
It does play a big role, especially brand new homes that have unfinished basements, because they're disturbing so much soil. And a lot of the times, I know there's a bunch of neighborhoods that right now where they're having to go beyond excavation and actually dynamiting. They're basically just putting cracks in the limestone and just letting all that gas come up. So
dang,
it definitely makes a difference.
That's crazy.
That's something you would never think about.
Yeah. Full disclosure, he's working on a system for me next week, and I was actually going to talk to you about the fan. I want it to be the prettiest one you have. I need it to be like maybe some flowers on it or something.
We'll do a custom fan for you.
No, appreciate it. I don't know where we're at after my little joke.
I got one for you. So you've owned several businesses now. What's your favorite part of business ownership, working for yourself and so on?
Well, I'd like to say that it's the freedom, but anybody that owns a business knows that
we know.
you work more than you would if you worked for somebody else. But I'm somebody that's always held myself accountable. So it's a lot more fun when you hold yourself accountable, and then you actually get to reap the benefits of what you're doing, as opposed to holding yourself accountable and then having somebody else tell you what to do or yell at you for the same thing that you're already mad at yourself for. That's something that I really appreciate about owning my own business is, as long as you do hold yourself accountable, you should be successful as long as you're good at what you do.
Is it just you, or do you have any employees?
So it's just me right now. So we are expanding, and we are at the point now where I need help. So if anybody out there is interested in radon, then or interested in real hard work and good pay, then we'd love to interview you and talk to you and potentially hire you.
Yeah. So you said when you added these mitigation systems and like the vapor barrier and everything, do you all do that as well?
Yes. Yeah, okay. We do all that. So the only time that we defer to other contractors is if we get into sump pump situations where the sump pump has died. That's something that I kind of still act as a home inspector on, because we have to seal up sump pumps just so there's no air movement. And I always test the sump pump before we do that. So if your sump pump doesn't work, I'm going to tell you. And I don't want to seal that thing in if it doesn't work, because it's helping nobody. So that's really the only time we defer our work to somebody else is with sump pumps and plumbing.
I have a random question that I didn't think about until just now. What level of like PPE do you wear? Do you wear like a full-on respirator mask, or?
So that's something that you actually have to keep track of. So it's called working hours. You don't have to. We've talked about it, and we probably should, to be honest with you. But the ARST, which is the Association of Radon Scientists, they really want you to keep track of your working hours, which I wish I could tell you the equation, but basically it's the amount of time you've been exposed to radon per day and that level. So whether it's 4 picocuries per liter or like the highest we've been exposed to in Lexington, which is 75 picocuries per liter.
My God.
Yeah, we've gotten some high levels here. None of them have beaten us yet, but it really differs. So they want you to keep track of that, and then basically at the end it'll spit out a number, and then you have to keep adding that daily. And that number is also 4. So if you ever reach 4 working levels, and I don't have to hold myself accountable for this, but I'm going to, because again, we're dealing with a radioactive gas. You either have to sign a waiver to sit out for 2 weeks, or you do actually have to wear a ventilator with PPE. And then if you get the magenta colored attachments for your mask, those actually block radon. So,
nice. How available are those?
Pretty available. They're not cheap, and
Right.
they're one-off use. So if you work
As
with
soon as
them
you
for
wear
4
it.
hours, you're $50 out. So
Wow.
I hope I don't get to that point. I've been doing this for 2 years, and I think I'm still under a 1 working level. So that just kind of tells the listeners, radon is a slow killer.
Yeah.
So it takes a long, and that's me being exposed to it for 4 to 8 hours a day, every single day for the last 2 years, and it still hasn't caught up with me, which is a good thing. But it's going to,
Nice.
and I'll have to wear PPE
Sure.
for an extended amount of time, just until I can get away from it for enough time to start working again.
Huh. I just thought of this when you said the amount of hours a day you're working. How long does it take to put in a standard system? Let's just say it's an easy job, basement, plenty of room to move around.
Sure. Standard systems 4 hours or less.
Okay.
So crawl space, depending on the size, could be
That's a day.
a full day, and that is where I have been using help. So we'll either get 2 or 3 guys out there and get the entire system installed in a day.
Nice.
So what kind of ratio of like how homes do you actually test high enough to need mitigation?
So over 400 tests last year, 30% of those homes came back at a 4 picocuries per liter or higher. So 30% failed last year. And again, that's anywhere from 4.1 picocuries per liter to 75.
Do you see that mainly in Lexington as a whole, or just kind of the greater Central Kentucky area?
Greater Central Kentucky area. I just did one down in the gorge too. So we really there are areas of Lexington, like the area that we're sitting currently right now, is actually a hot spot. And so it really is Central Kentucky. We do a lot of work in Georgetown. There is a lot of radon in Georgetown. Don't do a lot of work in Winchester. Very, very rarely do we get a call from Winchester. So I guess there's not a lot of uranium in the soil over there, which is a good thing for them.
Running around
Yeah, right.
killing it off.
Yeah.
But it's basically Central Kentucky.
Do you foresee them adding in any like further regulations or anything to take care of this?
It's on the pipeline,
Is it?
is my guess. So I still read all the newsletters. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac teamed up with the EPA, and now multifamily housing, if you're going through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, has to be tested. And if it tests high, it has to be mitigated. So they started with HUD housing, and we did some bids on that. Didn't really pan out, especially because I don't have a team, so I have to quote a little bit more, because if I'm going to install 8 systems on a complex, it's not going to be cheap. But I think it's on the pipeline. If
it started there, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, and there's going to be pushback. I mean, I'm sure, as you guys know, they're not going to do it at the drop of a hat. It's probably going to happen in 5, 6, 7 years, but I would be prepared for it.
It's probably for the better.
Yeah, I don't think we should complain too much about that. Like, hey, we'd rather you not get cancer.
Sure.
The other thing, so if your house appreciates at an average of 3% a year, which obviously it's a bit above that now, if the seller has to concede a system, or if they have to split it or whatever, it's not a life-changing amount of money
Sure.
to spend. I think that's probably a worthy thing to look into.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything that you would tell an entrepreneur if they were starting a business? Like what's kind of a piece of advice?
It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and you have to appreciate the grind. If you don't appreciate the grind, you're not going to be successful. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way with my first 2 businesses. Not that I wasn't working hard, but that I was trying to reap the benefits quicker than I was getting them, and that's not how it works. So pay yourself very little, save your money, and grind.
Do you see Alpha Radon kind of where you're going to stay for a while now? Like you feel pretty set up here?
Yeah. So my business partner is Christian, by the way, Christian House. So we've already been talking about expansion. We're doing very well in Central Kentucky, and like I told you, there's 52 other cities in the United States that are Tier 1 cities, and there's 31 of those that are equal to or bigger than Lexington. And we know that if we can make that work here, we can make that work in other cities. So we actually are looking to expand and do satellite offices in those other cities.
That's great. That'd be awesome. Yeah, that's probably a good market for it then.
There is a niche. So
heck yeah, man. That's
want to start a radon company?
Not right now, not at the moment, no. There's something else I'd like to ask, and if you can't answer, that's fine. But briefly talk to you, I think in a parking lot or something somewhere. After I think it was the day after we started this or something. I was like, "Hey man, we got to get you on." So, what is your biggest job to date? And I don't mean biggest by like income, but like maybe the task at hand.
So we did a 6,000 square foot ranch on nothing but a crawl space, and more material, more pipe work. Biggest fan, most amount of people on the project. Still did it all in one day.
Oh my gosh.
But I hurt physically for about a week. I
doubt it.
I don't know how much time you guys have spent in crawl spaces, but
not enough.
That's why I need to hire help, because I love it, and it's fun, but I don't know how many tens of years I could do that without not being able to walk.
Yeah.
It's that was a big one, and
so you need a nimble person.
You do have to be pretty nimble. You can't be much bigger than you or I. So that's
a part of the hiring thing that maybe we could put together like a little commercial for you.
I'd probably be a perfect radon.
Also, just perfect. Just try your best to be fucking nimble, man. Like work on that.
I probably walked in. He was like, "Man, you'd be really good under a crawl space."
Yeah, you want to just drop everything you're doing and come install these things. So, was there any other thing that was like really hard to do? Can you talk about that?
As far as getting the business started, or other well, we did Fayette County schools. That was a large undertaking, and we did that in the first year that we got started. I don't even know how we made the list of radon companies that got to quote. And the other thing that I learned is that we probably didn't quote enough, because we got a majority of the schools, which tells me I didn't quote enough.
That's usually, if you got the job, you usually didn't quote high enough.
Right. So it was a great learning experience. And as far as growing this company and growing to other cities, it really taught us a lot about what we need to be prepared for, and installing on commercial application is much different than residential. There's a lot more rebar involved. There's a lot more concrete involved. You go through drill bits per day instead of per month. And when you have to go 5 stories and run pipe for 5 stories and basically 600-700 feet of pipe,
all that rebar,
it's pretty exhausting. So
I was about to ask, because some building, like say the Central Bank building downtown, like that could test high too, and that feels like it'd be a heck of a job.
It could, and the biggest part is aesthetics in that situation. So the one we did for Fayette County Schools, that was 5 stories, is a building that they bought from Lexmark, and they really just wanted it to look pretty. So they wanted the fans to exit through the roof, but it was a split level first floor, so we had to mitigate basically like the basement side and the first floor side, which together was roughly 150,000 square feet. And we could have just gone out the wall like we would on a residential application, but they wanted us to go up through the roof, so we had to follow their pipe chase all the way to the roof, which a lot of tight places. You need to be nimble like we talked about, and it's a punishment on your body.
Is it loud? Like the fans you put in, can you hear them? Like, is there a lot of noise?
No, actually, if you install it correctly, it's actually relatively quiet.
Like how many CFMs would you say?
So the average fan that we install is 300 to 350 CFM.
And then what could you compare that to? Like a
bathroom? Do you know what a CFM is?
Only because I bought a bathroom fan.
You really pulled that one out of your ass.
I bought 2 bathroom fans recently, and do they get quieter?
They're quieter than a bathroom fan, actually.
That's what I was trying to get perspective on. It's like a 150.
Well, if you think about it, a bathroom fan's open, and our entire system is concealed.
Okay.
So you don't actually hear that fan. Like if you listen to the top of the exhaust, that's pretty loud, but that's always going to be above your roof. So
is it 3 feet?
So it has to be at least 12 inches above like where the gutter line is.
Okay.
Or 10 feet off the ground, or above any windows.
Okay.
So at least 10 feet away from windows, or above.
So above the gutter line.
them. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if you went 3 feet above the gutter line, it might look kind of silly.
Just be stacked that way too high.
I think we'd get some callbacks for aesthetics, but.
So getting started in the business, did you have like a mentor you worked under or anything, or have you just kind of taught yourself all about this through training and so on?
I do have a mentor, and it's actually the guy that we buy our fans from. It's one of the engineers that designs the fans, and I guess I picked his brain enough early on, especially when we were doing Fayette County schools, to where he was like, "Wow, this kid's in over his head." And he really wanted to try to help me. So, every time we run into a crazy problem or something that we just have exhausted all options, I'll call him, and it's like the easiest fix ever. Whether it's, we've rarely had to do it, but whether it's adding an additional suction point with an additional fan, like we've done double fans before, and that's rare for Kentucky. But he's helped me a lot. And besides that, I mean, pretty much taught myself. Yeah. So it was a lot of trial and error, and just really making the system prettier as I went, as best you can, obviously, and really starting to understand even more. Like, even though we're at 100% mitigation, there's still better ways to do it. And as these radon articles come out, and I get all these emails from all the radon scientists associations, as long as you keep reading that stuff, there's always going to be better ways to do it. So
I don't think we asked, how is it tested for?
So there's a few ways you can actually test. So we use continuous radon monitors just because you can't fudge the report. They ping every hour for 48 hours, and then you get an average from that report. And if the average obviously is below or under 4, you know whether you need to mitigate. And there's also charcoal tests. So charcoal tests, they're accurate to an extent, but since we know that the half-life of radon is 3.5 days, if it took 3.5 days for that mailing envelope to get to the lab, you might have lost half your sample. So that's the only reason I don't love those. There's a lot of people that still use those, and they can be somewhat accurate. But I'm a bigger fan of the electronic testing, and the biggest one to date now that I highly recommend to people is AirThings. So you can buy AirThings on Amazon. It reports to your phone, and it's about $150 to $170. And it looks like a carbon monoxide detector. So you keep it in the lowest livable level of your house, and it'll report to your phone, and it'll actually tell you what the radon levels are. And I've done side-by-side tests, and it's within a tenth of a point to the monitors that we use. So very accurate.
Have to try that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so whenever, I guess, could you shed some light on, maybe you can't, but so like a inspection company has a system or a tester that would cost how much?
The going rate is usually between $150 and $200.
Okay. And so these people can literally get a test that's $150 to $200. And I think that's a pretty good insurance policy. That's kind of how I explain home inspections to my clients, is I just say, like, yeah, you might not want to buy the add-ons, or you might not want to test for lead-based paint because you know that it's in the house or whatever.
Sure.
But if you could have knowledge of something that's like that, or potentially get part of it paid for or all of it paid for, I think that's a pretty good insurance policy to have. Is you pay $200, and then you know whether or not you've got this gas in your house.
And that's how you're right. That's how we recommend it to people as well. And that is the biggest clientele that we get, is buying or selling a home. Whether it's the seller paying for it or the buyer paying for it, somebody took the risk of, because it is a gamble.
Right.
So it's a gamble whether your house has it or not, but I would rather know whether I have it or not, just for peace of mind. So $200 is really not that much in the grand scheme of things, to know that you're not going to be sick later in life.
Right. And you don't test, do you?
We do testing.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. I figured someone would be like, oh, bull crap, his machines are, he's boosting my numbers up.
Well, and that's why I refer people to AirThings as well. I tell them, our tests are $200, and if you want to, you can buy an AirThings for $170, and you can keep it. So it's up to you. So, I'm not the type, and we steered away from it for a long time, and I just kept getting so many calls for tests that I was like, well,
Yeah.
I guess we'll offer testing, because we've always done post testing to guarantee our product. So I had the radon monitors. So
I see.
Kind of what you said. Like, I didn't want people to be like,
I think you were trying to sell them some bullcrap.
oh, yep, guess I got a slap in the system because this guy said I had it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have like any marketing material or stuff on like a website where people could go learn more about radon?
Sure. So if you go to the info page on alpha-radon.com, we have a lot of stuff. And really, I just pull a lot of that from the EPA, and I'll change that as they change their information. And really not a lot has changed since I've started. So very, very helpful information about entryways of radon, how it gets into your house, what it is, what it comes from. But also the EPA's website is really good, but you will scare yourself if you read too deep. So
That's anything pretty much. If I Google why I had a running nose, I'd have cancer too.
Yeah, I'm about to die, actually. I just got on WebMD, guys. It's nice knowing you. You ready to go to the 5 burning questions?
We can do it.
I'm ready.
You want to start it off?
Wait, what did we learn?
You want to do that? Let's tie it all in here. I'll start so you can steal mine and not blame me.
All right.
But I loved when you were talking about just kind of what you learned from being a business owner, and just it's a marathon, not a sprint. Keep up with the grind, because it's pretty easy to get burnt out, especially in the beginning when things are a little slower going. Money could be tighter, just getting business. But if you stay with it, I think all our guests have shown that it'll work out in the end if you just put the hours in.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is so starting a business, failing, maybe not failing, right? Like you chose.
I failed.
Well, you know what I'm saying. Like, I don't know.
Let's not gloss over that part. I failed.
Well, I was just saying, like, we don't know every detail. So, and then you chose to step away from another, but you didn't quit. You went and worked a job that you enjoyed and you liked and obviously had a passion for, and then found this niche. And it just goes to show you, like, there's probably people that are multi-millionaires that have started businesses that failed and failed and failed and failed. And then they found that one grocery list thing, and then now they're actually making money. So
what a bummer that you did that 14 years ago.
Yeah, I saw the writing on the wall, kind of like with radon. Saw the writing on the wall, knew there was a niche for it, and just I was way too before my time.
Yeah.
So
that's probably my favorite lesson from today.
All right. Well, we have 5 questions we ask everybody. I'll start it off with number 1. What is one thing when starting your business you would change or do differently?
I actually looked at this question when you guys emailed it to me, and I thought about it for quite a while. And since you guys know that I've failed with 2 businesses, with this business, my answer is nothing. This is the best path that I've ever started out on for a company. And again, really, the answer is nothing. I'm really looking forward to expansion and hiring, and I don't think I would change anything about this one. So kind of a unique situation, because I'm sure you get some pretty wild answers for that question.
Well, you had to go through the hard stuff to get here to make this one be nothing. I mean, it wasn't just by happenstance.
There's a lot of truth in that. Yeah. I learned what works, what doesn't, how to handle people, how to talk to people, and when to close your mouth.
Still learning that one myself.
I'm excited about the expansion part, though. Like, I think you got a good chance there.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we're looking forward to it too. It's going to be a real big hurdle, especially the first one will be a big hurdle. But that's again why we're saving a lot of money, trying not to pay ourselves too much, and really being prepared for a completely cold start, because we had a very warm start in this market, and
right.
We're going to be moving into a cold start situation.
Yeah.
I feel like it's there for the taking. I do. Number 2, what is your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby has to be playing golf.
Playing golf?
Mm-hmm. So I didn't tell you guys before, but I played college baseball. I played at University of New Orleans, and I actually stopped playing golf for roughly 10 years because it was messing with my baseball swing so much. I was a better golfer when I was 12 than I am right now. And I've been trying to get back to that point ever since then. I still find my baseball swing and my golf swing, but I try to get out to the golf course as much as possible. With a 1-year-old daughter and a business, it's a little bit more difficult right now. But yeah, if you find me on the golf course, you know that I'm real happy.
I love that.
Maybe you should start radon testing golf courses so you can hang out there a little longer.
You should, for sure. Just roll up on Greenbrier with the system.
All right. What's your favorite restaurant? If you want to keep it local, you can.
Got to be Durango's Mexican restaurant on Richmond Road.
Haven't had that
We
one.
haven't heard that one yet. Yeah.
Gotta go there. I would eat there 5 days a week. I recommend the Burritos Supremo steak.
Okay.
Comes with the white cheese sauce on top.
Ooh.
I'll probably go there for dinner.
Yeah, no.
It's dynamite.
I'm gonna go fill their pockets a bit. What is your favorite musical artist that someone might not expect?
So I looked at this one for a while too, and I did live in New Orleans for 4 years, so I'm gonna have to say Lil Wayne.
Oh, I was about to guess Lil Wayne.
But one that you wouldn't expect, like I like Elton John. So
Same.
I love that.
Matt really likes Boy George.
I mean, I'm a bigger fan of Prince, but
Yeah.
okay. If we're talking about feminine singers,
Let's wrap it up. If you read, what's your favorite business book that you would recommend?
I like Who Moved My Cheese. So it's by Dr. Spencer Johnson, and it's all about creating raving fans. It's all about how the big box stores can get beat out by small businesses because of work ethic and how you treat your customer. It's a really easy read. I've read it multiple times, but it's got a lot of good tips. If you're in sales, it's got a lot of great tips on how you handle your client.
I want to check that out. I've never heard of that one.
yeah, I was like thinking it was going to be like your daughter's favorite kids book.
I thought you were going to say by Dr.
was like,
Seuss,
what?
and I was like, okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
Shout out Dr. Seuss, first one. Well, that's all we have, man.
I appreciate it, guys. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really good meeting you. I learned a lot. So
Yeah, I don't know whether to go get just every house that I ever walk into tested or
probably
what.
going to buy that tester when we get off here.
No
We'll put a link to our Amazon affiliate link in the description there.
There you go.
That's right. All right, well, we appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
I'm Matt.
This is Shae, and this is the Building Small Business Podcast.
You're not out of here yet.
Now I have to start again.